So you are like a unity candidate. Your website is up now. It's martinforcd5chair.com. And you are endorsed by both Soren Stevenson and Lene Palmisano. So how did you win over people on both sides of the DFL spectrum? Like, are you playing both sides?
I wouldn't say I'm playing both sides at all. I think I've always been
Why
very
would people
honest.
who disagree with each other endorse you then if you're not playing both sides?
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
We're back on the Wedge Live podcast. I'm Taylor Dahlin. I'm here with John Edwards co-hosting. And the tables are turned again as we interview our own Josh Martin, who is running for CD5 chair at the convention next month. Josh is a DFL super volunteer, serving as the treasurer for multiple city campaigns last year and the chair or parliamentarian of also so many conventions last year and again into this year. On top of maintaining spreadsheets that are serving as a vital resource for anyone following Minneapolis politics. This is also the first episode where we are interviewing a candidate for a DFL party position as opposed to anyone running for elected office. So I am hosting this one because John doesn't really care about the internal party stuff.
I mean, I hate it. I'm going to try to recede into the background and not step on your toes as just the producer of this episode.
Okay, so Josh, the current chair right now is Scott Graham. I don't know if people even know this. So what is the role of the CD is like the congressional unit. So what is the role of a CD5 chair?
What a great question, Taylor. So the chair of a party unit in the DFL is much like the chair of, any organization is the head of that organization. I'll lead the meetings for the Congressional District 5 Central Committee and Executive Committee. I'll lead the team that is organizing efforts in Congressional District 5. And the unit kind of has a few main objectives. One, the unit will help organize the conventions that manage the endorsing process for the DFL. In our case, that's the Congressional District 5 DFL convention. We also work to support our DFL endorsed candidates in both the primary and in the general election, and to help elect DFLers up and down the ballot. We do fundraising to be able to support the operations of the party unit and our elected officials. And since I'll be serving at a somewhat higher level at the congressional district level, as part of that, I'll be interfacing with the chairs of our local Senate districts and other party units within CD5, and I would be serving as a member of the state executive committee, which helps oversee the state party.
Okay.
That was all so incredibly boring, Josh. No one is listening anymore. I'm sorry, Taylor. This has to be your first episode.
Yeah, it's the end of the
host.
episode now.
It's over.
Yep.
Tuned out. People will watch. So were you asked to run, or is this something that you decided on your own?
I think, much like most people who run for party office, I was asked to run by several people in the DFL. I think, like most people, my first response was absolutely not. I don't want to do that. But eventually they continued to ask me, and they started to wear me down. And then you start to think about, well, maybe I could do that. Maybe I do have the skills for that, and maybe I have a chance to get elected to that role. And so ultimately, I did agree to run.
You didn't answer the question, Josh. Like, why? Why are you running? You said you figured you could win. Like, you realized maybe
that's
I could
fair.
win. And the reason you didn't want to do it under any circumstances sounded like that was your initial reaction, is no way in hell do I want to do this. And then how did you come to the impression that, like, this is a worthwhile endeavor? This is worth my time.
So I am someone who has always believed strongly in the endorsement process, for one thing. And in order for us to continue to maintain that and for people to continue to believe in it, we need to be able to run that process fairly and effectively. And I think I am someone who can do that. I do also see that we have had an issue for the past however many years in CD5 where we spend more time fighting each other than we do trying to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. And that's something I would like to see change, and something I think I can help see change. The DFL is a big tent, but we have more that we agree on than we disagree on. We believe in things like affordable housing, healthcare for all, and feeding hungry kids. We believe in an economy that works for the middle class, not just for billionaires. And we believe that immigrants make our country stronger, not weaker. So I hope to be able to unite people in CD5 on what we agree on, so that after the endorsement process is over, after the primary is over, we can all come together and work together on a common goal to drive turnout in Congressional District 5 so that we can win statewide elections, and to assist our neighbors in districts that are not quite as deep blue as ours, so that we can win back a trifecta and get things done for everyday Minnesotans.
And what did your wife say when you told her that you were going to run for this, or that you wanted to?
We had to talk about it. She did have some concerns about how sometimes everyone is not always kind to the people in these roles, and she did not necessarily enjoy that idea. We also talked about the demands that it would put on my time, and we had to talk about how I would step back from some of the other responsibilities I've taken on in all the numerous things I do, so that I still have time to spend time with her. So that's, but yeah, no, we had to talk about it. And she had a lot of questions for me. She had a lot of questions for some of the folks that I'd be running with and were on my team. But ultimately, she did support me and does continue to support me in this endeavor.
So, Josh, in case you lose, I have an idea for your concession speech. Mm-hmm. Don't concede. Just say you have to talk it over with your family first before you go away forever. That's the Todd way of doing things, is when they say it's time for you to go, you say, I don't know, I think I'll talk it over with my family first.
I'll have to think about that. I don't think there's a mechanism in the DFL for anyone to veto the party officer elections. So if I lose, I think I will have to gracefully concede and offer my support to whoever the next CD5 chair is. Because I'm still going to work for the DFL, whether I'm in charge of CD5 DFL or not.
That's very admirable. So you mentioned the demands on your time. What are the demands on your time? How much time will you be spending for this unpaid role here?
I'm still not sure even I fully understand that, and I think I'll never fully understand that until I'm actually in the job. I'm a little scared to find out. But my understanding is this a chair role in the DFL, from the chairs that I have talked to, is that a chair role in the DFL is one of the most demanding volunteer positions in the DFL, more so than any of the other officer positions, because the buck stops with you. And I think that's even more true for a chair role at this level. So I am going to be backing away from some of my other responsibilities. For example, I will not be running for another term as president of the Kingfield Neighborhood Association. I'll be passing that on to other hands to lead those roles. I'll probably need to cut back on my convention coverage because I'll probably be too busy running conventions. And there are likely other roles that I'll need to either step back from entirely or at least lower my level of involvement to maintain my sanity.
Are you going to be willing to come on the Wedge Live podcast just to give me boring non-answers to protect your political future? Are you going to continue to do that?
Yeah, absolutely, John. I'm always happy to come on the Wedge Live podcast to talk about all the great work that the DFL is doing. And if you want to describe those as boring non-answers, that's your prerogative. But my goal is always to tell you the honest truth.
Are we going to be allowed to talk about the Charter Commission anymore? Can you...
I think we actually absolutely can talk about the Charter Commission and about my views on the Charter Commission. In fact, after the events at the Minneapolis DFL convention this Saturday, I think it is my duty as a DFL officer to talk to you about the Charter Commission.
Yeah,
the Minneapolis true. DFL convention made a somewhat last-minute decision to endorse against a potential ballot question, which would reduce the city council's authority to confer the mayor's appointments to various department head positions. So, I'll still be a DFL officer in some capacity, whether I win this election or not. So, yeah, I'm going to continue to talk about why it is important that the council maintains that important check on the mayor's appointments.
So your vice chair is Deb Ford, who was the SD61 treasurer for a long time and was a part of the that cookbook of six or whatever it was called.
Taste the Trifecta.
Yep. Taste the Trifecta. That was it.
Yes.
How did you decide on Deb as your vice chair?
That's an excellent question. There were certainly different ideas that we considered. I talked to a lot of people about who they thought would be a good vice chair. And one of the names that always rose to the top of people's list was Deb Ford. Deb Ford has been a super volunteer, as you described me earlier. She has been a super volunteer in the DFL as well. What I am looking for most in a vice chair is somebody who is not just looking for a title, but somebody who is going to put in the work. And I know that Deb Ford is one of those people, just like I hope that I am for the role of chair. I also, Deb is... much like me, is a big believer in building a strong coalition and in uniting the different factions in CD5 so that we can win for the DFL up and down the ticket in November.
Josh, I want you to put a percentage on this before I ask the question here. Like, what percentage of the people who achieve, the chair of a party unit are just insufferable, insecure pieces of who need this validation and need to lord it over other people? What is the percentage you would say?
I don't know that I'm going to answer that question, John.
I stumped you.
You're really asking me to say some negative things here about my future colleagues.
You don't have to name names. It's percentages. It's... I love your mug, Taylor. That is a lovely mug. Where did you get that? A hug and a mug. Wow. Who would make such a thing?
All I will say, John, is that I am going to run because I believe in putting in the work. I'm not here for a title. I am here to make sure that we can get the important work of the DFL done. I have met some of my other fellow CD5, or not CD5, I've met some of my other fellow Congressional District chairs, and I think many of them have the same commitment to the DFL. So I'm not going to dignify that question with a response.
Wow.
At least not in terms of percentages.
I mean, they could be. It's just numbers, Josh. You don't have to name names. Don't have to name names. No one will know you were talking about them.
But there's only like 8 of them, right?
There's only 8 of them, as Taylor
But
says.
there's a bunch
so
of party
like
units. Like, we got the Minneapolis DFL, we've got Senate districts. I'm talking about the whole, big sample size, Josh. Give me a percentage.
I understand that you're trying very hard to get me to speak ill of my fellow DFL volunteers, but I'm not going to do it. I think that the volunteers in the DFL who aspire to these offices, by and large, are honorable people who are committed to doing the work for the DFL.
So you, Deb Ford, are we going to get like a slate? Are you going to announce anyone running with you guys for other positions? I've heard rumors of some people that may want to come back and be in the CD5 party officer roles in the new Josh Martin regime. Is there anyone?
So I'm certainly in conversations with other people who are interested in DFL party officer roles. I certainly want to make sure that I build a strong team so that, I can't do all of it alone. Deb and I can't do all of it alone. But at the same time, I don't want to just come in and tell people that this is who they have. It's ultimately up to the convention to select these roles, and the nominating committee will have an important role in screening for all of these positions. So I don't intend on coming in with a full slate of this is the Josh Martin regime, as you put it.
Okay, so how many roles did you have at the city convention? Like, Eric Escala, he was only there for, like, I don't know how long, but he emailed me and he was just like,
Sure.
he said every time he looked up, it felt like you were being called to the stage to do something.
Sure. So at the Minneapolis DFL City Convention, I was the co-chair of the Constitution Committee. I was the co-chair of the Credentials Committee. I was not a co-chair of the Rules Committee, but neither of the Rules co-chairs were in the room at the time. So as the kind of de facto secretary for the Rules Committee, I gave that report. I also was kind of the de facto resolutions chair because we forgot to appoint a resolutions committee. So I just ended up giving that report, which was a very easy one since there was only one resolution. I think that was it. It's possible I forgot something. I was very busy that day.
And so, I don't know if this is even really related, but it also seems like it's harder for the DFL to be, like, finding more people to serve as, like, these types of roles. Like, just volunteers at conventions and things like that. So what do you have planned, or what ideas? Do you have ideas that you're going to implement to try to get more people involved at this level?
It certainly is hard to find volunteers for the DFL, especially for our caucus and convention process.
Especially when I'm shit-talking them all the time, right, Josh?
Yeah, that probably doesn't help. Our party units, in my experience, are often held together by bubble gum, duct tape, and about half a dozen overworked volunteers. I would like to change that. So I'm going to be working with not only myself, but with my team and of officers and with other allied organizations to put the word out of how people can get involved in the DFL, what they can do to support the DFL, try to talk to people and see what their interests are and what would be a good fit for them, and also work to try to do more fundraising for the unit because we are going to need more resources in terms of both people power and money in order to be able to effectively do our job, both for running caucuses and conventions that are relatively smooth experience for everyone, and in order to do our work to support our endorsed candidates.
Okay, so you are like a Unity candidate. Your website is up now. It's martinforcd5chair.com. And you are endorsed by both Soren Stevenson and Lene Palmisano. And then from like, DFL party officers from like Brianna Rose Lee and then like Susan Herder. So how did you win over people on both sides of the DFL spectrum? Like, are you playing both sides?
I wouldn't say I'm playing both sides at all. I think I've always been
Why
very
would people
honest.
who disagree with each other endorse you then if you're not playing both sides?
I think I've always been very honest with people about my political beliefs. I mean, they're often posted on my social media for the world to see, so I don't think I'm hiding anything. But I manage to work together with other people in a respectful way. I manage to I believe in playing fairly by the rules, and I think people know that I am an honest broker, that I will deal fairly, and that I would be effective in the role. I think a lot of people in the DFL, not so much for elected office, but certainly for party office, the most important qualification is not, do I agree with this person's politics? Because I can't really do a whole lot about that as CD5 chair, but is this person an effective leader? Will they be able to do the job? And I think that both people I agree with politically and some people I may not always agree with politically both believe that I have the skills to do that effectively.
Will you still maintain spreadsheets as the chair of CD5?
We'll see how things go in terms of time management. I do think I'll probably cut back on a lot of the coverage of DFL things because it seems awkward to report. Like, am I really a fair journalist covering the DFL
Can you
anymore?
imagine
I think
if Elliot
people might be
Payne
skeptical
live
of that,
tweeting
right?
the council
Right?
meetings? That would be awesome.
I think. Now, on the other hand, I might still continue some of my coverage of things outside of the DFL itself, such as city council meetings, the charter commission, other things of that nature. Although, again, that may come down more to time management than anything else.
The more I hear about this, the more it sounds like you're giving up actual productive activity to go do some bullshit, is what it sounds like to me. No? People get a lot of value out of your commentary and analysis, Josh. You're very educational.
And I just told you that I'm going to do my best to continue a lot of that. It just might not be covering DFL conventions because, how can I do that when I'm the CD5 chair?
Yeah.
It would be a shame if you had less content on actual city government stuff. That would be a shame. That'd be a big loss, Josh.
Well, certainly, if there were, I will pledge that if there were ever to come a time that I have to step back from that, I will make sure that we transition that to somebody else, so that even though Josh Martin may be gone, the work will continue.
Do you have an understudy?
Not yet.
How are you going to find somebody to do what you want?
It's going to need to be multiple people.
Wow. Who are the Gen Z Josh Martins waiting?
They might be listening to this podcast right now, Taylor. You never know. And if there were Gen Z Josh Martins, they probably would be listening to this podcast.
That's right. Yeah, they would be.
Just rise up, please. Rise up. You're a Unity candidate. You've talked a lot about just like wanting to work together. So I think we have to mention the Humphrey Project. Even though it was only around for 14 hours. Just because it was the reiteration of what was Protect Our Platform last year.
We need to explain all of this garbage
okay,
for
this
listeners.
is true. Okay,
if I'm feeling lost, I know the audience is probably feeling lost.
So the Humphrey Project was a website that was launched a few days ago, basically, and it was this big initiative to be like, we are standard DFLers. We don't want anything to do with DSA. We want to separate the DFL and the DSA. These are two different things. And it was kind of like really hardline stuff to the point that like they had this graphic that was listing out all of the Minneapolis City Council members. And even someone like Jameson Whiting was like not reliable DFL.
Really? They had a graphic? Nobody showed me the graphic.
I have a screenshot of it because so it only lived like 13 hours, because it really didn't land. Like it got to the point that, and it was launched by people who, ran Jacob Fry's campaign last year. And it ended up pretty much dying after the chair of the DFL, Richard Karlbaum, actually like posted a picture of their tweet and tweeted himself being like, this is not the moment for this. This is division. This is not good for the party. And then they took the website down.
How do we know who's behind it?
Because Sam Schulenberg tweeted about it. And do you remember how we found out that Alex Min was behind the Mickey Moore accounts in 2021? The old password reset trick.
Oh,
where you're like,
did somebody do one of those?
Someone did that, and it was his info. Yeah.
Oh.
So that's and
wow,
it was
what shoddy work. What shoddy work.
Yeah, and so
you
that's
left out the best part, Taylor. Like we're definitely not Republicans. Like who says that?
Oh yeah, it was like we don't we're not Republicans, blah 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 blah, and it was just like okay.
I'm a committed DFL volunteer, and I'm definitely not a Republican. And I'm thinking, I think you're a Republican if you have to deny. I've never in my life has it occurred to me to deny being a Republican. And if you feel like you have to, maybe there's something about you that's problematic.
But ultimately, the mission of that was to ban DFL and DSA dual endorsements. But I think they took theirs to the effect of even like as high as elected officials, and that's why they really pissed people off. They also attacked Take Action and Faith in Minnesota on that website. But so it was basically the new version of this website last year called Protect Our Platform, which was the same thing. They wanted to ban DFL and DSA endorsements. So a candidate couldn't be endorsed by both of those organizations. And last year, one of the people running around promoting this was Scott Graham, like in his role as the CD5 chair. And then he also like managed Pearl Warren's campaign last year. So I know we don't have elections coming, I don't think, for a while, but will you be a treasurer for any campaigns or anything while serving as chair, or do any little Scott Graham antics?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me about the Humphrey Project. That question took a turn.
We'll get to that, Josh.
We'll get to that, yeah.
But I am going to abide by the rules of the DFL and by the requirements placed upon me as CD5 chair. And as CD5 chair, I will be required to remain neutral in any DFL races, either at the Congressional District level or below, until there is a DFL endorsement. So I would not be, I'm not going to be treasurer for anyone unless they're a DFL endorsed candidate. And I have already spoken to Soren's campaign about this and informed them that sometime prior to, it's fine right now because he was DFL endorsed, but sometime prior to the next city elections when he runs again, they're going to need to find a new treasurer, because I do intend to maintain that commitment and maintain the neutrality required of me as a congressional district chair.
Well, what's the fun of being a bigwig if you can't put your thumb on the scale, Josh?
I know. We do a weird thing in Minnesota where we actually try to have the grassroots delegates, the individual people, make these decisions of who gets the DFL endorsement, rather than having our highest DFL officers put their thumb on the scale. So it's not me, it's who gets to decide who gets the DFL endorsement. It's not Richard Karlbaum who gets to decide who gets the DFL endorsement. It's the delegates who show up to conventions who were elected by the attendees on precinct caucus night. And I believe strongly in that process, and I'm going to uphold and defend it and maintain the spirit of it myself.
So it's quite a time to be putting out a website and an effort like this, continuing on, as Taylor described, the thing last year where they're trying to kick out the DSA. We've been through this occupation, the federal occupation, very traumatic time for all of us. And the thing that has Minneapolis on the map is the fact that people were out in the streets being a thorn in the side of the occupiers, who are federal law enforcement agents. And who do you think is the type of person that takes to the street with a whistle and is yelling obscenities at federal agents, making their life hell? What type of person is that? I think a lot of them are very left-wing people, perhaps DSA types. And the idea that you're going to kick those people out of your coalition this year is wacky. You have lost your mind, or you're just a Chamber of Commerce tool, and you're not really all that committed to DFL values. So, Josh, that's a long way of winding up to the question, will you continue Scott Graham's purge of those evil left-wing lunatics who are destroying our city, the DSA, and affiliated left-wing radicals?
I don't want to comment on Scott specifically. Scott Graham is not seeking re-election as CD5 chair. Scott and I certainly have our disagreements. But I will be clear about the Humphrey Project. I've been very public and very clear about my thoughts on the Humphrey Project, and I completely agree with you, John. This is exactly the sort of thing that the DFL does not need right now. My running mate, Deb Ford, and I believe strongly in the importance of coalition. I'm here to improve the lives of everyday Minnesotans and stop Trump's disruptive rampage. And anyone who wants to help, including the DSA, welcome to the team.
So you were talking too as well about how the DFL has this grassroots endorsing thing for party or for the for the Senate candidates. But I think one thing funny is that everyone can see that Peggy Flanagan is has the broadest support among the delegates, but every single congressional chair in Minnesota has endorsed Angie Craig. And I think that's kind of a sign right now of how out of touch a lot, or the majority of the chairs of the state are with where the party base is, that they're all behind Angie Craig, even though, it's a statewide thing that just the broadest support is behind Peggy. So once you're elected, are you going to be silent, or are you going to endorse Peggy Flanagan and break with them?
Yeah, what happened to this pledge of neutrality, Josh? Are you going to keep it, or are you going to endorse?
I do want to make one thing clear from a rules perspective. The rule is that chairs cannot endorse in races at their level or lower. They are allowed to endorse in higher level races. So the other congressional district chairs who have chosen to endorse Angie Craig have not violated any party rules. Whether they should endorse is a different question. Now, certainly up till this point, I've remained silent on the statewide races because I've got my own campaign for CD5 chair to run, and I think weighing in on those things would be a distraction. As for after I'm elected, if I am elected, I actually do intend to continue to remain neutral on the statewide races for a couple of reasons. One, because I do think that even though I could endorse, I do think it is important to let the grassroots and the delegates make those decisions rather than me putting my thumb on the scale. I'm also not honestly sure people really care what I think about the statewide races.
When Taylor gave that stat about every CD chair has endorsed Andrew Craig, I'm like, Taylor is the only person in Minnesota who even knows that statistic, probably. Nobody cares.
It's not true. Angie Craig is bragging about it.
Oh, is she bragging about it? Oh,
yes.
Okay. Well, what a thing to brag about.
and then the last thing I would say is, there's a possibility, as you know, Taylor, I have chaired and served in various roles for conventions. There is a possibility I might be asked to perform a similar role for the state convention. And until there's confirmation one way or another whether that were to happen, I really want to make sure I maintain neutrality on the statewide races, because certainly it would be completely inappropriate for me to weigh in if I were to serve in that role at the state convention. The same way as when I served as the chair for the Senate District 51 convention or chaired the Senate District 43 convention, I did not weigh in on any of the elections that were coming up at those conventions.
I like that Taylor is prompting me in the show outline to ask this question.
You put it in the it was one of the questions that you'd asked in the, so I just threw it in there. Like,
I feel like maybe I already asked it, but it's good to ask questions multiple ways in order to get your obstinate unresponsive guest to actually answer the question. So I'm going to ask it in a different way than I did earlier. Josh, how do you deal with the dregs of humanity, I'm speaking of people involved in DFL party politics, while showing absolutely no emotion or favoritism? It sounds like a hard job for you.
I don't think I would describe my fellow volunteers as the dregs of humanity, for starters.
I'm only talking about top level people in DFL
so I would be one of the dregs of humanity in this analogy.
Yeah, we're
aspiring.
Okay, you're aspiring. You're not elected.
Aspiring dreg of humanity. Okay. Well, what I would say is certainly there are people in the DFL that are challenging to deal with and that I will have disagreements with. As to how I can maintain level-headedness and maintain a calm demeanor throughout that process. I think some of it's just in my nature, that's just the way I am. I think also my background and training as a professional parliamentarian is very helpful with that, because when I'm serving as a presiding officer or when I'm serving as a parliamentarian for a client, whether it's within the DFL or for other clients, then it's very important to be able to maintain that poker face and not show any favoritism towards one side or the other, so that people believe in my neutrality and in the advice that I'm giving them is in keeping with the rules and not my own personal opinions. So that helps a lot, and I think it also helps, as I mentioned earlier, to remember that we are all working toward a common goal, even though we may disagree on how to get there.
Well, Josh, that's a lot of a big talk and promises there, and bragging about your resume and your qualifications, but
isn't that what you do when you run for things? Haven't you done these interviews?
Yeah, well, I'm going to chime. That's a wind up to challenging you here about, like, when have you faced a crisis moment during some meeting where, someone got out of line and did something to you or someone else, and you had to assert your authority? What, do you have that kind of experience?
It's challenge. I can't talk about a lot of the parliamentarian code of ethics prevents.
It's like talking to a secret agent here.
No. I'm going to have to use a DFL example, because a lot of the clients that I work with outside of that, not.
Do you have parliamentarian
about
clients?
Those things with it. Yeah. So I'm a professional parliamentarian, so I work with different organizations.
What other organizations hire?
School boards, nonprofit organizations. Worked with city councils.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
What city council? Can you say which city councils you've worked for?
I think I can at least name it. I don't think that's top secret. I worked. I once was the fill-in parliamentarian for the Lake Elmo City Council. They brought in an outside parliamentarian, but their regular outside parliamentarian was on vacation one time, so I filled in at a meeting for him.
Wow, third string parliamentarian, Josh. Why isn't that on your website?
Yeah, I should add that to my website. That's a good point, John. In terms of challenging DFL meetings, I do recall that there was a some of you may have heard of the Minneapolis DFL. They have had some tense meetings in the past, not only at their conventions, but also at their central committee meetings. I'm certainly hopeful that now that we have new leadership in place in Minneapolis DFL, I want to congratulate Ayanna Smith-Koyman and Eli Sherman, who were recently elected as the chair and vice chair in Minneapolis DFL, and who've both endorsed me for CD5 DFL chair. But prior to that, we had some tense meetings, and I was brought in as an outside parliamentarian to be the professional presiding officer for those meetings. And certainly at those meetings, we had some difficult exchanges. There were times when I had to remind people of the importance of decorum. There were times when I had to call members to order, and there were times when I had to make rulings on difficult questions of procedure. But I've received pretty wide praise for my performance as chair of those meetings, even from people that I may not agree with on political issues. So I think that is what I would use as an example in response to your question.
I feel like every DFL meeting is challenging in a way. Like I don't even know what I don't even know what one was going on. I think maybe I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but it was like happening in the afternoon. I wasn't even in it, but I was just like seeing kind of people talking about it in a chat, and I was like, okay. And then I like went and took a nap, and then I woke up from my nap hours later. I feel like the meeting was like still going on. And I was just like, oh, okay, this is just... And I know there's some meetings where I've tried to watch them, and they can just go on and on and on and on.
So, Josh, the Wedge Life podcast has a long history of alumni going on to great things. We have Commissioner Jason Garcia on the park board. We have Taylor Dahlin, who went on to become the founder of TaylorDahlin.com. Sure. I'm the beloved tour guide behind a nationally renowned cat tour. You ever feel like you're aiming too low, like you will be the least among us?
So I'm letting down the legacy of the Wedge Live podcast by merely being a letdown.
Even if you win, it's going to be a letdown.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I'll cop to that. I certainly look up greatly to my fellow coworkers at the Wedge Live podcast. Greatly admire DFL endorsed park board candidate Jason Garcia. And of course, you and Taylor are doing great work as journalists and on the Wedge Live Cat Tour. I will continue to toil as a lowly party operative, one of the dregs of humanity, as you put it. Perhaps one day I will be able to rise to the same level as my fellow coworkers here. But in the meantime, I will continue contributing to the DFL and to Minneapolis in the best way that I can.
I feel like this dregs of humanity thing is going to catch on. Like Minneapolis, CD5 needs a website where they sell merch, like dregs of humanity.
All the volunteers can wear it.
Yeah.
Just own it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nicknames, Josh. Something that happens to people when they win either high elected office or party office and become a bigwig is that people abbreviate their name and start calling them by a shorthand that everyone recognizes because they're that important. Like you don't need to say Josh Martin anymore because you can use a shorter version. And I wonder how you feel about J Mart. Can we call you J Mart?
So, funny story, actually. You're not the first person to call me that. Back when I was in student government in college, which probably that probably foretold my involvement as a DFL party officer. I was chair of some of our committees back then, and I worked very closely with our leadership, and our then president, Jared Steen, used to call me J Mart. Tragically, he did pass away in college due to a rare genetic condition known as Wilson's disease, and there's a scholarship set up in his name now. But he was a great leader as student senate president, and I think really inspired me to continue on to much of what I've done today. So, I would be happy for you to call me J-Mart if that's what you choose.
I think it's good, too, because people would always call Ken Martin Kmart.
Oh, did they?
So, yeah, they would call him Kmart.
See, that kind of makes sense, though, because it goes off of Kmart, which is the store. So
there's also Josh R.R. Martin. I like that one because it has memes to go along with it. Oh, there's a series of memes portraying you as the author George R.R. Martin in the
Josh
Get Up.
R.R. Martin is pretty good, yeah.
You like
it
that
just
one?
makes it longer, though.
It does make it longer, though.
It just makes it longer. It's kind of the opposite of a nickname.
People could
It's
just
not
call
really
me by
a good
my
name.
actual name. That is also always an option.
The important thing is it ties in with the memes portraying you in the George R.R. Martin outfit and beard.
That's
People do
true.
need
That's
those.
true.
What's the other one? Josh Martin Luther? You in the
Oh,
monk's robe?
Yeah.
Nailing the spreadsheets to the wall. That's the best one. That's the best one.
It's
There are
also
so
longer
many
than your
memes of
actual
me,
name, though.
even before I've actually taken office as CD5 chair. Who knows what the future will hold if I were to actually be chair?
Why doesn't your website have a memes section? Because our friend and cartoonist Jareth Garcia has spent thousands of hours putting you into memes, and your website doesn't have a memes section.
Just an endorsement section.
Yeah.
It's true. I didn't think about adding a meme section. In my experience, that has not been a typical aspect of a campaign website, but it is something I may have to think about.
That's too bad. It should be.
Lots of people were wooing, making woo sounds whenever your name came up at the Minneapolis DFL convention on Saturday. Why is that, Josh? Why are people wooing for you like you're some kind of local celebrity? Like you're just the guy doing the credentials report and people are going, woo!
Yeah, I mean, the people yearn for Josh Martin for CD5 chair, as we've seen. The delegates are behind me, I think is what we saw at Minneapolis. I think people may appreciate the work I've done for the DFL. They may appreciate the work that I've done on the award-winning Wedge Live podcast. They might appreciate the work that I've done with all of my spreadsheets and other coverage of local government. I certainly thank them for that, and I hope to continue to work with them to bring CD5 DFL further into the future.
Yeah, at SD62, you had your own. There were multiple sub-caucuses with Josh Martin in the name.
That's true, and I do want to state for the record, I did not tell anyone to do that. They decided to do that independently of me. But yes, there, in the sub-caucus process, you can have a candidate name or multiple candidate names as well as an issue. Normally, those are just elected officials. There were some sub-caucuses that included elected official names and also included the name Josh Martin for CD5 chair. I can't prove that that's the first time that that's happened, but to the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of another time where a sub-caucus included the name of a candidate for CD5 chair. So I'm very grateful for the support of my home district in Senate District 62, and I think I'm in good position to win a good number of those delegates at the CD5 convention.
I mean, the fact that that is happening is just proof that these people are not representative of the larger population, because that's nonsense, Josh. Your name and a sub-caucus name, that's ridiculous. They're making a mockery of our endorsement process, I think, by including.
Well, you'll have to take that up with beloved Kingfield institution and respected SD62 DFL delegate David Brower, who I believe, I think there's video of this, was leading delegates in a chant of Josh Martin.
Look at Josh bringing up,
which again, I did not tell
chanting
people to
his
do.
names.
It's true. It's true. The people want Josh Martin for CD5, John. It's only the sickos at these things.
And just like with the endorsements, it is the grassroots delegates who will decide who will be the next CD5 DFL chair.
Do we want to talk about the importance of the DFL endorsement process, caucuses and conventions? Because
I would love to talk about that.
Well, we probably talked about it a bunch, but like when you watch the conversation unfold on social media, It's always someone who's like, look at these losers inside on a sunny day. I'm out enjoying my life. And look at you. Look how exclusionary this is. Who has time to spend all this time? All these insiders. We should just have a primary. This is dumb. DFL caucuses and conventions are dumb and a waste of time, and they exclude people. And like, I see their point, kind of, but I'm like a reluctant believer in the process because I kind of see it as separate from primaries. Like, it doesn't serve the same purpose that a primary does.
Correct. And
so, like, exchanging one for the other doesn't really make sense to me.
Absolutely. And I... in terms of the sunny day thing, I do always joke that I pray for mediocre weather for a convention in order to get the highest turnout. Because if the weather's too bad, then people won't show up. But if the weather's too good, then they might not show up. But in terms of your broader question, I do think that there is a great importance in the caucus and convention system. And that while I do realize it can be frustrating, and I certainly hope I can work to improve it to make it a little less frustrating for people. In what I have heard from a lot of people that I know in the DFL who have contacts with people in other states, is that a primary system doesn't necessarily work out the way you would think. Often what happens is that the process is driven even more by money. Often a lot of the exclusionary decisions still happen. They just happen outside of the public eye. So the candidates are not selected by the grassroots delegates, and rather they are selected by, party bigwigs who decide who's going to, run in the primary. So I do think that while it may not seem that way at times, I do think that the process that we have in Minnesota is one of the best in the nation and does enable grassroots participation and enables that the average person to have a say in who should be our party endorsed candidates and not just the people with money and power. And I hope that we can continue that system. At the same time, I do also hope we can improve that system so that it is easier for people to participate in. Because I do see the criticisms that it can be difficult for working people, for people with families to be able to participate in this process. And I think there are improvements we can continue to make that easier. I don't think we can ever make it perfect, but I do think we can make it better.
And there's that question that gets asked at every convention: will you abide by the endorsement? And at the heart of that question is the fact that nobody's legally required to abide by the endorsement.
Correct.
You can go on and put your name on a ballot and run anyway. So, I mean, it's not denying us the ability to have elections afterwards. There's still a process afterwards. I really think there's value in starting the process early. There's value, as Josh said, in making it less about the money and more about, like, people. And, kicking the tires on some candidates because, if you can't handle a little mini campaign for a party endorsement, maybe you're not going to be so good at running an actual campaign to win an election. Most of the time, the person who is best able to win an election is also the one that's best able to win a party endorsement. It's rarely the case where those are two different skill sets.
I would say that's why, despite your personal distaste for the people who run these processes, is why it's so important to have good people running these systems. Because if you do believe in the importance of the caucus and convention system, we're going to need effective leaders to be able to make it run well and to be able to maintain it.
That's a good point, Josh, because on the one hand, I think you're doing the Lord's work, Josh, but also I think you're a member of the dregs of humanity at the same time. I don't know how I hold those two ideas in my head at the same time.
Cognitive dissonance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh, you have anything that didn't come up that you want to?
No, I think you were very thorough. I think we covered a lot of important questions about the DFL and about my campaign. And thank you both for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak to hopefully at least a few CD5 DFL delegates and alternates listening to this.
do we think we did your campaign more harm or more good?
Well, time will tell.
This has been a special episode of the Wedge Live podcast featuring Josh Martin for CD5 chair. Josh, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm Taylor, and my co-host was John Edwards.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.